the FDA has woken up and said, hey, this AI thing is real.
Some people get a little freaked out about something in the news when it comes to Elsa. Tell us, really, if not what Elsa is, because it's kind of hard for me to, really figure out and hear the technical part of that, but what it also means as a whole when it comes to things, federally and in this country as they relate to the healthcare system.
Yeah, when I looked at it, and first of all, was a little surprised that they actually dropped that announcement. I was like, yeah, well done. And so I think the FDA has woken up and said, hey, this AI thing is real. Let's get to it. And they said, okay, what's a smart way to deploy this? And if you think about it, the FDA is probably sitting on mountains of valuable data. Yeah, every drug, every therapy, they've got a view into, what the clinical effectiveness is, what the side effects are, where does it work, where does it doesn't, and all the real world monitoring, right? And that happens that all the pharma companies and life sciences companies have to report on. All that's kind of sitting in like the FDA land. And what are they doing with it? Not really sure. Like everyone else outside of the FDA is figuring out off-label usages and other ways of sort of extending, the use of a drug for multiple purposes. But the answer is actually right in the data that's like, within the four walls of the FDA. So I think what they're really trying to do is to say, all right, well, how do we, sort of give the workforce at FDA enough sort of tech, lift and assistance so that they could be a much more proactive, sort of shaper of what therapeutic, pathways ought to be and, how, pharma can innovate quicker and be the closed loop, as opposed to we go through this long, drug development process and we submit it for, the FDA approval, and then, they take their number of years, and then, the answer comes back and who knows what it is, right? You can simulate all that, and look at, hey, given this pattern and given these molecules, how is it all going to work? What are the odds? What is it applicable? What type of medical conditions would preclude something? All that's freaking right in the answers are all right there. The question is, what tech can enable an easy way to get to those answers? And I think that's what Elsa is. And, well, initially, it'll have its kinks and issues, and, everyone will probably write it off after a couple months saying, it's not that great. But we should give it a chance. We should let it work for a couple of years and see where we're at. And if the FDA really is serious and doesn't get discouraged by the first point of failure where something big happened and something blows up in the press and it gets blamed for something catastrophic, you don't shut it down. You learn from it and you figure out, fix it, and make it better. Because eventually all of that could then become much like what autonomous driving is, right? So 5 years ago, yeah, people were talking about, Elon was talking about, we're going to put full self-driving on the road. And everyone's like, it's impossible. But guess what? If they put the algorithms in the car, it started learning from millions and millions of miles of what drivers were teaching the cars on, got better and better and better. And now, yeah, I drove it the other day and we pretty much can navigate most things, not all things. You've got Waymos on the car that are operating in 4 cities and soon to expand to more. So the pace of where you thought was something looked like science fiction to where it's actually commercialized and real is much shorter. So could we not envision a future where the FDA is completely autonomous with far few humans in the loop? Not because we don't care for the humans, but because humans sometimes create bureaucracies and red tapes that create more inefficiencies than is needed. Instead, you can let the tech sort of drive the outcomes, and then humans can check the math. And once we're comfortable with the math, let it be monitoring mode versus humans being the primary drivers of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd push it one step further. Like, it's not even necessarily the things that are real, fallibility, red tape, bureaucracy, human, and sometimes inseparable pursuits or fruits of a certain endeavor. I'll take it even a step further and say, if somebody is one of those people that say it's shady, right? Like things about the FDA and all this, whatever the criticism may be, a little shady, a lot of shady, whatever. If you could distill a process bound to the science, to the actual science, the likelihood, the predictability, which is at the core and essence of a lot of AI models, then that's what you're saying. You're like, let's have a process that hopefully we can have removed from those, either emotional or self-serving traps, so to speak, because it is truly based on a very science-based approach and assessment. And you define that benchmark and you define what that process looks like. And I think that should be actually not now something that's sus, as the kids say, or suspicious to somebody, but say like, whoa, that's actually a way to address the things that I complain about a lot when it comes to like, the second-hand agenda, because you have, permutational or computational assessments, and you have historical benchmark of, yes, it worked, it didn't, this is why it
Yep.
failed. And you have probably a pretty hearty explanation of why it didn't meet those metrics, which is really cool. So I think, that's actually potentially a salvage to build trust, if done correctly.